In Joe's review that he left, it says, honestly good book.
What do you think constitutes a good story?
So the quality itself isn't necessarily what makes a good story. I think what makes a good story is...
This next one is a new segment I want to call Hot Takes, the Isle of Lies.
Very underhyped. Have a character, make something go wrong, have them try to solve it, make more things go wrong. That's what Act 2 and the 3 Act structure is just conflict.
Lightning bolt! Sleep! Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! Sleep! Lightning bolt!
The worst writing advice? The worst advice would be to...
Welcome to the PP. On today's episode, we have with us the author of The Isle of Lies, Ashton Treadaway. He's fortunately been a very good, close friend of mine for a long time, and now he's a very well-written author. It's a really good book. That's why he's on the show. I guess, would you like to tell them more about you specifically?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to thank Joe for having me on the show, first of all. Like you said, we're good friends. We grew up together. But yeah, I just released my first debut novel last month in May. I've wanted to be an author my whole life. That's kind of what I went to school for, was writing in English. I'm an English teacher as well. But this was my first published book. And it is just a fun, fast-paced fantasy. It's action-adventure. There is some romance to it, a pretty heavy romance subplot. It's about a trio of hunters that go on a mission to help a king recover treasure that's hidden in a labyrinth under his castle. It has a lot of Greek mythology vibes. I took some inspirations from the Odyssey and other Greek stories. The world itself that the book takes place in is called Felheim. I actually created that world for a D&D campaign that I was running that we didn't get to play in as much as I wanted to. So I took some stories that I had for that purpose, and I'm turning them into novels. So it's not games that we ran, but it just takes place in that world. So I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun book to write, and I'm currently working on the second one.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is because it's a genuinely really good book.
Thank you.
I would not have had you on the show if it wasn't. So you're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. In Joe's review that he left, it says, honestly good book.
Yeah. So I'm being genuine. I'm very honest.
I think he was surprised that it was actually pretty decent.
My wife loves and hates that about me. I'm very honest about things. You know exactly where I lie, pun intended. Isle of Lies. Yep. For those of you who didn't get that.
I got it.
But no, it is a very good book. Ashton, actually, if you want to check it out, one of our episodes, Jack the Ripper, I think it's called Dread. I should know this, right? I did everything. He was our, not dungeon master, but game master. He's the guy who basically built out the story. It's a really good episode, or 2 episodes if you want to check those out. He's, I guess I would call a master storyteller. Not everybody is. That's why when somebody's like, hey, I wrote a book, I'm very, what is it? Is it trepidatious? I try to use fancy words around him.
Trepidatious would be a good
yeah. I tend to try to use fancy words around people who are like English teachers, such as yourself, and people who write. But yeah, no, I usually get very nervous around people who are like, oh, I wrote a book. I'm like, great, good
for you.
Yeah, I'll read that. But in this instance, I did read it, and like my review says, it's surprisingly good book.
I appreciate it. Maybe a little less surprised with.
And I genuinely look forward to the second one. But with that being said, with writing the book, what does success as an author mean to you? So I look at this in terms of an artist, whether I make a movie, whether I write a book, whether it's writing a song. What is success to you in your art?
Well, to me, there's different milestones to hit with it, but in my opinion, I would already call it a success. The fact that I wrote it, for one, because such a small percentage of people that say they want to write a book actually do it and finish a book. So just the process itself of finishing a book to me is a success, and having some people read it is kind of the only goal. That's why you write books, is you want to share those stories with people. So the fact that I've had a lot of friends, I've had some other people read it, and it's been getting some pretty good reviews so far, and people seem to enjoy it, which is my personal purpose for writing, is just for entertainment. I want to write a story that people enjoy and think about, and I think that was a success. So I've already hit that, so in my opinion, I'm successful. But I do have some milestones, obviously, that any author would want to hit. One would be to see it in like a Barnes and Noble.
That'd be a pretty sick milestone.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
So it is possible with self-published books, so that's on the horizon. I do want to. I have some plans once I have this trilogy out, because I'm gonna write the first 3 books first. So once I have the full trilogy out, I'm gonna do some plans with trying to get into some bookstores.
Yeah.
So
And you're still self-published, correct?
yeah, it's
But you're
it's all
open to
self-published. Yeah, you can get your stuff put into Barnes and Noble. It won't be like in every Barnes and Noble, but you can go to like a local Barnes and Noble.
Oh, that's cool.
And then, yeah, so there's and some local bookstores.
But
So
if I guess like a publishing house were to come up to you and be like, "Hey, we'd like to buy your book," you could like still do that.
yeah,
if you wanted.
yeah,
to.
I could sell the rights to it if a publisher was interested. So obviously that's another milestone. Is I would like to have a literary agent at some point. I did query this to 2 agents to try to get traditionally published, and I went the self-published route. But I'm going to continue to try to get traditionally published, just because that's kind of a lot of authors' dreams. So that's a milestone.
I'm sure there's pros and cons to self-publishing.
Yeah,
and
there's
I've looked it up quite a lot just on my own.
Yeah, I'm actually very happy I self-published. I don't want to get into it too much, but that's gotten me on TikTok and into the kind of self-published community, and I'm really finding some people on there that I'm connecting with. So that's been really enjoyable too. But to finish your question, the final kind of big milestone will obviously be to do this full time, because it's my passion, it's what I love. So if I could make enough sales and do things to where that could be my job, is be a full-time author, that's the ultimate goal. But for now, I'm happy with where I'm at. The fact that I'm putting out books, people are reading them, and they're enjoying them. If it doesn't get any bigger than that, I would still be happy. So
The thing about literature is like you can go anywhere in the world and like in your mind, and it's the most like accessible art form to everyone. Like literally everyone. So with that being said, there's a lot of aspiring authors. Even myself, I've written a little bit, but like you said, I've never finished anything. Well, I wouldn't say anything actually. I take that back. I've written a lot. I just haven't completed it. In the process of some stuff right now, but I digress. What would you say to other like aspiring authors or people who want to write something? Do you think they should go the self-publishing route, or hold out?
It's different for everyone, so I can't tell you whether or not to self-publish or traditionally publish. It's kind of based on what your personal goals are. But I will say some advice for people that are aspiring authors. The best advice I can give you is, as we said, just to finish your book. Just to sit down, finish the first draft. The best writing advice I ever got is to allow yourself to write poorly, because that's the holdup a lot of people have, is they want it to be perfect the first time. But that's the point of editing. So I would say just sit down, knock out a first draft, actually get it written in your hands. Once you have the book, then you can mold it and make it better. So if you're an aspiring author, for one, I don't believe in aspiring authors. If you're writing, you're an author. So any authors out there that want to get published or finish a book, just sit down, finish your manuscript, get it done to a point where you can edit it, and then you can go from there. What do you want to do? If you want to query agents, try to traditionally publish. If you want to self-publish, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, I really like that. I draw analogies from like multiple different things. So success truly is just the act of doing something. And you are correct. There is no aspiring author. You either are or you are not. And how you see yourself is what you call yourself. So if like, oh, I am an author, is means I'm embodying that of a person who has written something and is writing. If you're currently in the process of writing that book and you haven't finished, I would still classify you as an author, because you are embodying that thing, right? Like if I'd never written anything, I can't just claim to be an author. Or like, for instance, if AI wrote an entire book for me, I am not an author because I didn't write anything. I was just good at using AI, essentially, which that's a whole different topic in of itself. A very hot topic, actually.
Yeah, that's definitely a rabbit hole.
Yes. But I really appreciate that because even in terms of like art, so like doing video, when I first started the podcast, I think I in 2 months made like 50 episodes or something wild. I don't remember what the numbers are, but I deleted half. I deleted like half of those episodes. Like, didn't say anything to the guests or like ones I did just myself because they weren't up to my standard, essentially. So in terms of like author to video, I would call it art. So like you said, just the fact of like starting and let yourself write poorly, whatever it is, whatever art you're doing, just do it. Like you just do it, whether it's good or bad, just the act of doing it, you will get better and you will embody that thing that it is that you want to do. But with that long-winded statement or whatever it is, does success in the sales sometimes affect you? So like for me in the podcast in particular, I would never let any of like the views or subscribers or whatever, wherever they're watching this, affect the actual art or the thing that it is that I want to make. Because I never set out to do like, oh, I want to do all sports. I want to talk about books. I set out to make whatever I wanted to make. Like for instance, this episode is about literature and storytelling and books, and that's what it excites me. That's what I want to make. So whether like 5 people watch this, 5,000, 5 million, does not matter to me. It's the fact and the act of just doing this and getting it out that excites me. So that would be like my sales, for instance, those numbers. And some people who have really large numbers, they can go through these emotional highs and lows and be like, well, that video sucked. That piece of work was a failure. But how do you see that? How does that affect you, or how has it so far?
I'll say it's only been out for a couple months, but the sales to me don't really matter. The fact that people are reading it is what I care about, because I just want people to enjoy it. So whenever I hear someone reads it, I'm happy. Like the sale itself doesn't matter. That's why I would give it away for free when I have.
Okay.
But I would be doing this just like you said. You're making these videos. Doesn't really matter to you how many people watch it. You gotta keep doing it. Same thing with writing.
It matters
for me.
a little bit.
I mean, yeah, it feels good. It feels good. But I would keep writing if nobody read it.
Yes.
And the fact that some people are reading it is just kind of that boost. And it does make me happy, but I'm not beating myself up over sales. Like
I feel that in the same way of somebody who I would have never expected to watch an episode, or like they commented online, which means a lot. Comment on this episode, please, or wherever you're seeing this. But yeah, like somebody will say like, oh yeah, I saw that episode, or like, oh, I watched this thing from you, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You're lying. No way.
Like I had a couple people from high school reach out to me and said, oh, I read your book. I really enjoyed it. So stuff like that means the world to me. And like I made, I think this whole month, the month of June is almost over. I made like $20 off of it.
Nice.
But
That's like 2 coffees.
I know. But even just seeing people read it, because I didn't see like who's reading it on Kindle and things like that. Just anyone reading it makes me happy. So the money to me doesn't matter. To be honest, any money I make is just to go back in the books, because I do want to like pay for the cover artist. I do want to actually add a map to this book. I'll probably put out a second edition soon, so that costs money.
I think that was one of my recommendations. Not that it was like my sole idea, but
after
reading it, I gave him some thoughts, and I was like, dude, I would love a map.
Yeah, I do have the map made. I just didn't hire an artist to make it, because I don't want to just put the kind of the raw map that I have that I personally made in there. So I want to hire an artist to make it good. But things like that cost money. So any money that I do make on the book, I'm just going to go put right back into the book. So the sales don't really matter that much. But getting reviews and hearing what people's actually thoughts on it, for one, that will help me as an author and become better. And 2, just to know that they enjoyed it and enjoyed something that I worked on and that I worked so hard on. The fact that I got some enjoyment from people is all I really care about.
A wise man once told me, in terms of publishing things, putting things out, put your maps out poorly. I'm just kidding. I don't know if you caught that.
I doubt it.
Okay, good. It's just letting that awkward silence live. But yeah, I mean, like sales definitely, it can be a positive and a negative. But it's how you choose to see it as a positive.
Yeah.
Essentially. Even if you do have a lot of sales and you do get negative reviews, you could still see that as a positive. Like, oh, this is what people liked and this is what people didn't like.
Yeah. I've always been open to constructive criticism. If someone just says, I hated your book, it doesn't really help you. But if you say, hey, like any sort of feedback that can help me improve as an author, I'm happy with it. I don't get offended by people saying that, oh, this could have been better, things like that. Any sort of feedback does help.
Yeah, I think I gave you some constructive criticism even within this book. I always try to when I give constructive criticism, I try to choose 5 positive to 1 negative. So yeah, I also like hated doing it as well, but like I knew as somebody who creates things, I really would like the same kind of feedbacks. I was trying to give feedback that I would want somebody to give to me, essentially.
Yeah, and I appreciate your feedback.
And I hated every second of it. I was like,
most of it was positive, so there was.
It was genuinely a lot of positive stuff. And I was trying to come up with negative stuff, to be honest with you, just so I could give constructive criticism.
That's actually what authors want. Like when we have, not necessarily as much after it's published, but when we give out ARC readers and beta readers, we kind of want to hear the negatives because we want to go back and fix them. And that honestly was some issues I was having, because it was, for one, it's hard to have people read it before it's done to begin with. And the people that did read it were like, oh yeah, I loved it. And it's like, that doesn't help me. Like if you tell me what you didn't like about it or what's wrong with it, then I can go back and fix it and stuff. So any sort of those constructive criticisms are really good.
Yeah, if you're like me, it's hard to give constructive criticism also without sounding like you're a turd, you know. That's just the way I try to do it, is because I hate having to give constructive criticism, especially when something is good, because it is a good book. But like I know, like I want to improve. Like tell me what I did wrong. It is not a perfect book. But with that being said, what do you think constitutes a good story? Like, so I'll say this real quick. I know I should just ask the question and shut my mouth, but when it comes to video and movies, there's obviously good movies and there's obviously bad movies. And some are just like okay, but it's sometimes hard to put your finger on like what makes this good? Why do I really enjoy this? So with looking at it from that point of view, what makes a good story?
To riff off of what you're saying about movies and things like that, if you think about movies, a movie can be objectively bad and still be loved.
Yes.
So the quality itself isn't necessarily what makes a good story. I think what makes a good story is, does it make you feel something? It could make you laugh. It could rip out your heart. It could do any of these things, get your heart pumping for the action. There's so many genres and so many different ways to tell a story that there's no one set way that makes a good story. I will say that as long as it's kind of consistent, there's a structure to it, and it's going somewhere. And like I said, I think the most important thing is that your readers feel something. And if you can achieve that, if you can draw them in, give a satisfying kind of conclusion to it, things can leave off on a cliffhanger, but as long as you leave them feeling something at the end, that's what makes a good story.
Yeah, I'd have to completely agree. I think like a good video, piece of marketing, good film, good book makes you feel something. It draws out emotion, whether that emotion's excitement, whether that's anger, whether that's fear, whether that's joy, nervousness, whatever it is, as long as it elicits that emotion that gets you to like want to read or gives you something you couldn't have got otherwise, that's what I consider good.
Yeah. And like that's some of the best feedback I've gotten from people that read it, even my family and stuff. I don't want to give anything away, but there's a little twist at some point in the book, and some people are even like, well, what if this happened, or if they like didn't want something to happen because they were rooting for it to go a certain way, or if they did say, oh, I'm glad this happened, and they were rooting for something and they felt something when it did happen. And if it makes them happy, or even if it makes them sad, that's all a success.
Yeah, I will say as I was reading the book, there were several moments where you would basically put up a problem for the characters to solve. And as I was reading it, I was like, how's he going to solve this problem? And that's part of that is why I kept reading, or made me excited to find out more of how they were going to solve this problem that you created. Which, when as a reader, you're like, how did the author even come up with this? Like, this doesn't even make sense. Which actually brings me to one of the things I want to talk about was a Vesling. But before I get to that, I pulled up this quote I had just read from actually the 1818 book Frankenstein by Marie Shelley. I actually DNF'd. I did not finish. It was just hard to read in that like not modern English. And but I did actually get a really good quote from it. And it's part of like what constitutes a good book is when you elicit those emotions. But this one kind of resonated with me, and it says, "You have guessed right. I have lately been so deeply engaged in one occupation that I have not allowed myself sufficient rest, as you see. But I sincerely hope, that all these employments are now at an end, and that I am at length free." And essentially what the scene was talking about was Dr. Frankenstein creating him, and he spent like hours. He didn't sleep for days because he was so focused on bringing life to something that was dead. Some people actually refer to Frankenstein as like the first work of science fiction. It's debatable, but a lot of people refer to that as like the first modern works of it. But that quote, it was like, you're so focused on something that you couldn't do anything. Like, you couldn't eat, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't, like, that's all you were locked in on. And it made me think of like making these videos or like writing a book when you're so engaged in this art that you just, I don't know how to explain it. You're like in this special, I don't know what you would call it, the special just zone where you're just locked in, and like you have to shut out the world, like your family, nothing matters to you other than getting this piece of work done. But I guess with that being said, now I guess I wanted to go kind of into the Vesling. And for those who don't know, the Vesling is a completely new mythical creature created by you in the book. I know some of your other monsters and creatures were, things of fiction that have already been created. But the Vesling in particular is something new. So what was it like to have to create something completely new? Because I knew exactly what you were talking about. I know what a Vesling is now.
That came about from me. As you said, a lot of the creatures, just to give some context, the characters in this book are monster hunters, so there are a lot of monsters and creatures and magical creatures in the world. And I wanted to give different feelings to different areas of the world of Felheim. So this book most mainly takes place in the Emerald Isles, which is inspired by ancient Greece. So all of the monsters that they encounter in that area of the world all come from Greek mythology. So the Vesling they encountered kind of in the mainland of Felheim, and that's the world I created, and I wanted that to have a different feel to it. So I wanted to come up with my own creature so that it feels more unique and feels like this original world.
Now, I appreciated like the other monsters that are already quote unquote in of existence, because it was really easy for me to grab onto them and picture them, because that's why we read fantasy, is to escape into the fantasy. It's very different than reading a book about how to better yourself. Although you can just from nonfiction as much as you can fiction. But yeah, I did appreciate that, the fact that I was able to grab from those and then get this little new piece of
so
mythical creature.
I did want to create something that was original in my own creation, and the creature itself came about because of the problem. As you said, that a lot of times I just throw the characters into a problem, and I'm what we call a pantser, which is short for fly by the seat of your pants, as opposed to an outliner. I don't outline every single thing in the book. I kind of figure it out as I go. I have these plot points that I want to hit, but I don't have it all figured out. So I knew that they had this problem to solve, and I needed a creature to fit the parameters to create this problem. So that became the Vesling. I was like, okay, I want a creature that's attracted to shiny objects so that it would get this treasure that they're going after. And I needed it to be difficult to get away from him. So I gave him like teleportation powers, I should say. So the Vesling.
You're making it sound like you were trying to cover up a plot hole, but that's not how it reads.
It's not a plot hole. It's
Yeah, I know.
It's
just,
a plot
you're
device.
making it sound like that.
No, but that's why we create things is
Yeah.
for plot devices to. Okay, I want to have this in the plot, so I'm going to create this. That's all any author is like, oh, this is something I want to create. So I created the Vesling to be able to teleport and attract a shiny object. So he gets this thing that the hunters are after and teleports away, so that they have to figure out a way to somehow get that from them. So it just kind of, in my head, I thought about what a creature like that would look like, and that's where the Vesling came from.
So that's actually another one of the points I had written down was like the different ways to tell stories. You called yourself a pantser, which is that's great, or an outliner. Do you blend those sometimes? Like, do you have all of your plot points like beginning, middle, and end?
Yeah, it's a spectrum. So most people aren't a full outliner, or some people call them a plotter or a pantser. And I actually prefer the term discovery writer, but in the world of writing, pantser is a more popular term. But I'm kind of a mix of the two. I would rate myself on a scale of like a 7 if 10 is full pantser, because the way that I made my stories is I kind of have a beginning, middle, and end. I know where we're starting. I know a lot of the scenes I want to hit in the middle. Since this is an action adventure book, I kind of know, okay, I want them to do this. I want them to fight this monster and do this. And I kind of know where the ending is, what kind of the big climax is going to be. But all the points in the middle I figure out as I go. And I
kind of
write.
like that.
And so for me, the way that the book flows and happens is, like you said, that my characters would get into a situation and you're thinking to yourself, oh, how are they going to get out of this? How are they going to solve this problem? I don't know when I start. I put the characters in the situation. Like, for instance, there's a Cyclops. Okay, we need to fight this Cyclops or get past it or save our friends. How are we going to do that? When I first start that chapter, I have no idea. And then I put myself in the shoes of my characters, given all the tools at their disposal that they have, and I naturally figure out, okay, what is the only path or what is the best path forward. And sometimes I have to give them a reason, throw more conflict at them. Okay, so that first plan doesn't work. Now what do you do? And all I do is put myself in the headspace of my characters and try to solve it as natural as you can. Because if you go in with a plan like, oh, they're going to do this and save the day and all this stuff, it's not going to feel like, it doesn't feel as natural, because it's like, oh, it's not what a real person would do in that situation. So for me, when I'm writing, I create in my head, these are real people. Like, a lot of times they do stuff I wasn't expecting. Like at the very first chapter, one of my characters finds a hiding spot. So they're trying to set up an ambush for these monsters that they're hunting, and I had two of my characters just like go up a tree and like, oh yeah, we're just gonna wait for them up in this tree. And the other character is a big, like 7-foot, very muscular man. He's like, he's not gonna climb a tree. And I wasn't planning on it, but in my description of the cave that they're in, there's a dead bear carcass. And I wasn't planning on putting that there. Just as I was typing, I was like, oh, that would be cool, because it shows that these monsters eat bears, which shows that they're bigger predators than the bear is.
You're just sitting there and you're like, haha, sick.
Yeah. So I was like, if I'm on it in that situation, where would I hide? I was like, the bear carcass. So
That's wild.
yeah. So I don't plan that ahead of time. I didn't even plan for there to be a dead bear. It just added color to the scene. But based off of all the information that the characters have, they make their own decisions. So that was chapter 1. So that was, honestly, as an author, that was one of my first times where I thought, oh, these characters are doing things I didn't expect. So that's kind of how I write, is I just put my characters in a scenario and have them try to make the best decisions they can and what's true to their character.
It sounds like somebody could if somebody has no siblings, they would benefit greatly because you're just playing a role-playing game by yourself.
Very true. That is a big reason where this book came from. Is I never got to play D&D, so I was like, I'm just gonna do it myself.
I mean, it sounds like you could never get bored because you're constantly just playing. You're just self-assisting yourself in a role-playing game.
Yeah.
Because that's actually some of the best role-playing games, and not to just reference D&D. It's just D&D is a structure, system you can use to tell stories. There's multiple systems out there, multiple ways you can tell stories. Just like there's the difference between video and literature, and the way you can combine both with a script. But that some of the best stories are written in that way, where they don't know the outcome, because sometimes you don't want your viewer to know the outcome. Some are structured in a way where the viewer actually does already know the outcome, but now they don't know how the heck they're going to get there.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like your beginning, middle, and end, where you know how it starts, but you're like, I don't know, I have no idea how these guys are going to get there. And with that being said, some of the best role playing sessions I've seen or watched, such as like Jack the Ripper, if you want to go check it out, whenever the people fully engage and get in character, and they don't make decisions as like how I would want to make decisions, but they make decisions how that character, based on that situation, their mindset, what they know, and how their emotions are, would make those decisions.
Yeah.
It's like when you watch a movie and you see somebody and you're like, a horror movie, don't open the closet. He's got to be in the closet. But you're not in that situation. You know, the person that's actually in that room that's like, oh, nobody's home. Guess I'll go take a shower. But yeah, I mean, with that being said, is there other ways you can structure a story? I know I've written a few down, but just off the top of your head, is there?
Yeah, there's a lot of different story structures. Some people, like I said, it's a spectrum. So some people are full outliners, where they will outline their entire story and then they know this chapter is supposed to achieve these things. It's going to advance this character arc, this amount. So people write that way, and then some people do follow specific story structures. Like the 3-act structure is what I personally use to try to think of my stories. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the simplest to use.
I found most people, like in some of our research, pretty much everybody uses that.
Yeah, because it's not so much a prescription for your stories. Some people can use it that way, but it's more of a way to look at the story. If you write a natural story, a good story, and kind of look at it from a bird's eye view, a lot of the stories will have this structure. Like when I was writing, I didn't really think of, oh, this is my 3-act structure. I did a little bit, but after the fact, you can be, okay, I can see that this is the exposition, my first act. This is my inciting incident. This is where I threw all the conflict at the people, and then this is my climax at the end and the resolution. And that's just kind of naturally how our story develops. So some people use other structures to plot out those points. I think there's like a 7-act structure that I've thought about using at some point, and there's plenty of others. So there's ways, if you're stuck and you don't know where the story is going, you can look at these story structures and use it to develop, okay, I can have this low point here to add an emotional effect. I can have these highs and lows, and there's just a lot of different ways to look at writing.
And if you're listening or watching, I would recommend watching, because I'm probably going to put up on the screen some graphs of different storytelling structures.
Yeah.
So like I have written down for the 3-act structure is setup, confrontation, and resolution. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And most of them are drawn with a graph that it's gradually rising all the way up to, you know, that climax of that confrontation, and then how it gets resolved.
Yeah.
And most stories, I think, do start that way, because the setup is a lot. Like I feel like it's a big haul to get somebody into the world that you are creating, especially if it's a completely brand new world. They know nothing about it. How do I tell them about this world and everything in it without directly telling them about this world and everything in it, and like showing them that through their actions or stuff that's going on? Because I think that's what really makes people invested.
Yeah,
is when you're not telling them, but you're just like, this is what they did.
Exactly. Show, don't tell. And that's what a lot of, especially beginning authors, have a problem with. especially in those first chapters, is those exposition dumps and telling you
I hate
about the
them.
world.
It's like the part of the Bible where they start going through all the names,
Yeah.
and you're like,
So that's why you wanna try to kind of tease out your world building and stuff through action and only tell what they need to know for that specific moment instead of just saying here's my world and all that stuff. But that's a different
yeah, I'm
that's a
sorry to
different
all
topic.
you Bible people who are upset about the names thing, but it's just not fun to read.
I don't think anyone loves
No, it's
Matthew chapter
not.
1.
It's not. But there's some snobby Christians out there who are like, well, no. If you look, it's the reason for. Yeah, I get why it's there. It's important, but it's not as fun as reading a story. It's necessary, but I digress. You already got my apology. Some of the other story structures I saw, though, I'll just name them off real quick. Free Text Pyramid, The Hero's Journey, In Media Res, Non-Linear, Fractured Structure, and Kishoko Tenketsu. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but they are all great ways to tell a story, and they vary wildly. Some are a little close to each other, but like you said, most people do use the 3x story. I've seen some people basically take the 3x story and just cut it up a bunch, and now it's 7x or it's 10, and instead of it being a linear line, it's there's a few more
there's ups and
highs and
downs.
lows.
Yeah, another term for that I've heard is try-fail cycles, because that's what makes a good story is conflict and failure. So they try something, they fail. They try it a different way, they fail. They try it again, and they eventually succeed. So a good book, to go back to one of your earlier questions, does have those ups and downs. You don't want to read a story where there's succeeding the entire time, right?
Yeah.
You need failure.
Very few stories can do that really well.
Yeah.
I've read a story where it was them just constantly. I can't remember the name of it. No, yes, I do remember the name of it. It was a manga actually, and it was solo leveling, and the entire premise of it is him leveling up. That is literally the entire premise, and it's a really good story. It kind of lost me at the end. For me personally, I didn't really enjoy the ending. At some point, I saw where it should have been cut off. But yeah, very few stories can have the character just win
Yeah.
and be entertaining and engaging and want to find out more.
Yeah, you need to have conflict, and that comes from failing or not succeeding, or even if you do succeed at the end, which most stories you do want the good guys to win at the end, but options 1 and 2 didn't work, and they had to resort to option 3, or that there is some loss in there. So yeah, so conflict is one of the big parts of a good story.
Now I only have a few more things in here, just to kind of go over outside of everything else we were talking about, and one of those is the 5 elements to a story, and it is the plot, the character, the setting, the conflict, and the theme. Is there one that is the most important, or 2 or 3, or is there one that you could take away and it wouldn't disrupt the rest of the story?
I've made a TikTok on this topic.
It's actually where I got this from, by the
yeah,
way, if you want
so-
to check out Ashton's
So
Ashton's
self-plug
TikTok.
Ashton Treadaway, author, on TikTok, if you want to check me out. But if I had to choose one that I think is the most important to any story, it is character. That is because character drives the story.
Well, let's choose 2 because I feel like one.
I'm gonna get to another one.
All right.
I'm gonna say.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm gonna rank them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe not all of them, but to me, character is the most important, because if you have an interesting character, it's going to draw people in. That's what people connect to. You can have a good plot and all these stuff, but if you have an insufferable character, no one's going to want to read your book. So in my opinion, and I did
Freaking Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
yeah, if you were just
It was
reading
hard
a
to
book in
watch.
his perspective the whole time, yeah.
Which, by the way, don't give that guy a hard time in real life. That's just a character in
yeah,
a show.
I think he's doing good now.
I hope so, because he apparently had it rough for a while.
Yeah,
Because my God, I hated Joffrey.
he was very, very good villain.
He was insufferable.
Also, very good actor.
Yes.
But to go back to it, so I would rank character as the most important. You want a good character that people can follow. If you have a good character, in my video, I mentioned entire franchises that are built around a single character, like Sherlock Holmes, James Bond, things like that.
Shrek.
Shrek. That all comes from character. And I think, as I was just saying, I think the next most important is probably conflict. Is if you can have meaningful conflict and have your character go through something that is going to mean something to them or be exciting to get over. That's if you're struggling to write a book, that's all you need to know is throw conflict at a character. Have a character make something go wrong, have them try to solve it, make more things go wrong. That's what Act 2 and the 3-act structure is just conflict, conflict, conflict.
Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! Sleep! Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! Sleep! Lightning bolt!
That's what books are. We're reading someone go through these conflicts, figuring out how to solve them, having wins here and there, but bad stuff just keeps happening over and over. And at the end is when they have that resolution and they finally defeat that conflict. So to me, conflict is really important. Next would probably be plot, because you want a good plot to draw your readers in, and a unique plot or an interesting plot is really important and exciting, because you could have character and conflict, but if the conflict, like, to me, the conflict kind of makes the plot. If it's just,
I was gonna say, like, if you have a good character who can actually cause the conflict, or the conflict can happen and he's just a part of it, whatever way you choose to do it, I feel like the character and the conflict kind of draw out the plot.
Yeah.
And that also draws out the setting and the theme.
Yeah,
and those kind of fall to the wayside. So I feel like I agree with you.
Yeah. And in that video I made, someone commented and said that theme's the most important, which I disagree with. I think a good book will have a theme, but most authors, I mean, I could be wrong here, but I feel like most authors don't think about the theme that much when you're writing and saying, oh, my whole purpose for writing this book is to say this theme. But if you write a good story, themes naturally develop. So I think that a good theme is going to come with a good story. But if you develop an entire book, an entire story just around this theme and say, oh, I want to make a story about this, it's not necessarily going to be. I
feel like that's just polishing a turd. You could polish the turd, but it's still a turd.
Yeah. You need those things to surround it. So a good theme, like if a book has no theme to it and it's not actually saying anything, it's probably not a very good book. So theme is very important, but I think that for creating the story, it's less important than the other ones, because in my opinion, it's a byproduct, not necessarily a goal that you're setting out for. I mean, which I could be wrong. I'm sure people made movies and say, oh, I want this theme, or I want to make this point, especially for if things are more about social commentary and things like that.
It's not that you can't. It's kind of like when we said writing a story where the character only succeeds. It's not that it can't work. It's just that it's very rare for it to work.
Yeah.
And I would not ever consider yourself the exception when trying to write a good story.
Yeah.
Success, we're not, don't need to muddy the waters of that, but just writing a good story, it's pretty safe if you just focus on character and conflict.
Yeah. And as far as settings go, a good setting can really like spice up a story.
It helps a lot.
It does help, especially in fantasy. You want a really interesting story. I think of like Brandon Sanderson's books, especially Stormlight Archive, has like this really unique setting. And
if I can picture the world that they're in, it helps me that much more to live in that.
So all of these are important. I'm not saying that any of the 5 elements, that's what makes them elements of a story, because without any of them, it's not really a story. You need all of them together to work in tandem. But in my opinion, setting is lower on the totem pole, because you can have a really, really good story in not a crazy settings. I don't think of some movies that were filmed in a single room, right? The setting doesn't really make or break a story, in my opinion.
I have a question about the setting.
It can just add to your story.
Do you think just adding pieces of artwork can pretty much do a lot of the heavy lifting with a setting? And I'm asking from the point of view of, like, I've read, for instance, Dungeon Crawler Carl. And there'll be some fan art, or there'll be actual pieces of art within the book that will explain like a map or something like that. And that personally has helped me with setting, because then I can they can explain it through words, but being able to see a map or seeing like the way a character looks or the way a village looks really helps as I just read the rest of the next few chapters.
Yeah. I think that definitely depends on the reader. To some people, there's different levels of being able to picture things in your mind. So some people might not need any visual cues whatsoever. They can just read the descriptions and see in their head. But I know I was actually,
I mean, in terms of just the settings.
yeah. I think it could definitely benefit. Like I love looking at fan art of settings and seeing what the author meant and things like that. But for me, when I read, like I have a very active imagination, which is why I'm an author. But I can pretty much see it in my head, so I don't necessarily need the artwork to be able to picture it. But I know people with aphantasia and people that don't see anything in their heads at
What
all.
is aphantasia?
Someone that has no mental images. Like if you like
Oh,
picture
that's awful.
picture an apple.
Yes.
Like in your head, can you see an apple?
Yep.
Some people can't. They there's no mental images to them. And a friend I actually made on TikTok who's about to read my book, I was like in a live stream with him literally like 2 days ago, and he mentioned that he had it, and that kind of makes reading difficult for him. So yeah, so it's different. So I'm sure for someone like that, having a literal picture in a map, or
Especially when it comes to fantasy.
or fan art, you can see it, and it can add that extra element. But that's why I was saying it kind of depends on the person, because
I feel bad for people who can't picture the apple.
yeah, no. I am grateful that I can, but
Yeah, because we could literally travel to any world that you want. Outer space, under the earth, Felheim, wherever you want to go.
please visit Felheim. But so I think physical artwork is definitely a bonus and can help people, but I don't think it's a necessity for establishing a setting.
Yeah, I'm all about in terms of art. I guess I do this in everything I do, like doing the most.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy when like I can read a book and then I can also listen to the audiobook, but the audiobook's more of like a dramatized version of it, where I can hear the characters talk, I can hear the people walking. Maybe there's a movie I can watch on it, and as I'm reading the book, maybe there's some artwork I can look at, and as a person enjoying the art, I just, whatever I can do to get more of that world is really what I enjoy. And that was actually some of like the things that I recommended to you, was like, give me some maps, give me some artwork. I want to see what the people look like. The only other thing that I would have wanted, that I think I also suggested, is like some of the character voices, if there's ever like an audiobook for it. And Onyx, boy, I there's no voice for Onyx, but I heard his voice whenever that. How tall is he?
Like nearly 7 foot.
Yeah, when that like nearly 7 foot big black guy's talking, I can hear the boom in this strong ox of a man's voice. He's very like, he was very easy to picture.
Yeah, and that also goes with descriptions and stuff. Like I don't know if you noticed, but Onyx talks in exclamation points.
I did not catch that.
For that reason, to give that effect.
I know he was very like boastful in the way that he talked.
Because when I first describe it, and the very first time you hear his voice, I describe it as booming. And if you look at Onyx in writing, it's kind of a faux pas to use a lot of exclamation points. Like you don't want to kind of overuse them. But I very intentionally had Onyx almost every time he speaks. It has an exclamation point, because that's how he speaks. He speaks very loudly, and
So he lives his life very loud.
yeah, and he's very happy. He's a very jovial person, so he laughs a lot, and there's a lot of exclamation points, and he's saying things very, just very loud. And so that's kind of in the dialogue, in the tags, in the exclamation points. You kind of get that part of his personality.
Yeah, well, that's some bonus points for you, because I didn't catch that you intentionally did that. I just picked up on it. So instead of telling me how he was, you were showing me. I didn't even realize. That's pretty cool. I really enjoy that. I just picked it up as I was reading. You never said it exactly. I guess you did say it a little bit, but
Yeah, a little.
yeah, no, that's really cool. You got me, and I didn't even know.
Yeah, I mean that's how you that's how you differentiate characters, is give them unique voices and make them talk differently than each other, like using exclamation points for one character, not for the others, or for using more contractions with a certain character, or if they have a dialect. Some of my characters will like cut off the ing because they have a certain dialect, so just different voices to different characters.
Yeah, I think man, I think the only other thing that I really had in here was I had three other things. But I'll start with the first one of whenever I was younger. I didn't really understand like the difference in books. I was just always told readers are leaders, and that I knew it was important to read. I didn't understand why. Even out through high school, I just used like Spark Notes, whatever like thing it was, or movies to just quickly BS my way through a little like summary of a book or presentation in front of the class, which I'm sure tons of people can relate to. It wasn't until that I read a what is it called? It's a biography based on actual. It's like a fantasized biography or something like that. I don't even know how to explain it. But essentially, it was a story of an Olympic runner, and it's a true story. And I read. It was the first book I ever read, like front to back. And it was the same feeling I got whenever I was in, I think, I don't know, like 5th grade or something like that. I was actually in Texas, and it was the first time anybody's ever sat down and had story time and read a book to me. I don't even know what the book was, but I still can picture in my head like the flying dragon that she was explaining and the colors of the world, and it was just so exciting as a kid being read to, and I was like, this is awesome. And every single time I went back to class, I was like, when is story time? Like, I was so excited for story time. I wish I knew what the book was. I have no idea. But it was those two moments that I was like, oh, this makes sense. Because I've always leaned more towards like self-help books, stuff like that, which I still do. I enjoy those. I think it's good for education. But you can learn just as much from a book like this that you can from a book that's teaching about finance or running or science or whatever it is. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because there's so many different ways to read a book. Just kind of like when you're trying to make a movie and you're talking to the people that are going to pay for it. What do you call them? The production managers or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. They always say 2 for you, 1 for me. As in like I do 2 movies for the studio and then they allow me to make one that I want to make.
Yeah.
I kind of treat it with books now is where like I look for a book that I'm just trying to read for enjoyment, such as this one. And then I read one that's maybe like self-help or a book that's in relation to, I don't know, podcasting or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that because there's so many different ways to approach reading and figuring out how you can actually enjoy books. It might be audiobooks. There's just so many different ways. And also not all audiobooks are the same. I've learned that as well.
Yeah.
Some of the people who read them are much better than others.
And just to jump on top of what you're talking about is that's one of the main things as an English teacher. That's one of my main goals is I want my kids to find a love for reading or an appreciation for it. So every year, especially with my honors kids, I have them do a end of the year book report where I didn't like one of the first week of school. I take them to the library, have them pick out a book, and the whole semester I have them read it. And at the very end of the semester, we give our presentations. And so many students, I teach like 14-year-olds. So many of them say, "Oh, I don't read," or "I hate books," and it's like pulling teeth to try to get them to pick a book. Even my honors students. So I try to direct them to something that they'll enjoy, and that's one of my best feelings as a teacher is when it's one of those kids that says, "Oh, I don't read." They like get into the book or say, "Oh, I really enjoy this," or if I give them a suggestion and find a book that they actually like. Because there's something out there for everyone. That's why I tell them, it's like, what do you mean you don't read? Like, I'll ask them, like, what movies do you like? What shows? Just to find kind of a genre. Because there's probably a book out there for anybody, depending on what you like. So, yeah. Please read.
I think it's just figuring out what you like. And understanding what the book is, how it's written. Like the Frankenstein book that I did not finish.
Yep.
I tried to read it. I understood the story. I looked it up a little bit more and tried to do whatever I could. And I'm glad I did because I got a few quotes from it. And I got through pretty much most of the story. But Yeah, I mean, I found out what I like. I found out what I don't like. Because some books were recommended to me. I'm like, I don't understand how this person enjoyed this. And yeah, sometimes it's okay just to not finish the book, move on, and go find something you enjoy.
Yeah, don't be afraid of DNF books. I'm not very good at it. I'll try to finish a book if I start it.
Oh yeah, it kills
But-
me. It kills me.
Yeah, but definitely know what you like. Some, and also there's no shame to what you like. Some people only read romance. That's perfectly fine. I personally very rarely delve into anything other than fantasy and sci-fi. That's like my genre. That's what I know I enjoy. So I almost exclusively read that. But I'll dip my toes into other stuff, and I enjoy that too.
And some books are so universal that whether you're an all fantasy person, whether you're all of a self-help book person, some books are so well written that they're universal.
Yeah.
And people across the board are like, oh, you know what? Maybe I kind of like fantasy, which has happened to me. There's certain stuff that I was recommended, and I was like, oh, I have a huge list of recommended books,
Yeah.
Which we're actually about to do right now, because I take recommendations all the time. If you have recommendations, leave them down in the comments wherever you're seeing this, because I do add them. I look them up. I give them time to whenever I want to read something. I look through it. And I'm like, I kind of figure out what I want to look at next. But yeah. Please leave those comments.
Add to his TBR.
Yes. There's actually so many books. I don't have enough time to listen or read. I'm a big listener. I listen to a lot.
I do enjoy an audiobook.
Yeah, it just works well with everything else that I have doing that I don't find much time to, read the
sit
old
down.
school way. But with that being said, I want to go into this next thing, and we're gonna close after. But this next one is a new segment I want to call Hot Takes. This is something that I've done before. Haven't revisited it up until this moment since I started the podcast.
I'm honored.
Yeah, so this will be considered technically the first, hot takes. The other ones you can't see; those are locked and private. Probably won't see the light of day. Those are test episodes. But with this, we are going to go through a bunch of books Mr. Ashton has read, and they'll be real quick. There's going to be a lot of them. So if you need to go back through and write these down, pause the video, do whatever you need to put these down. But we're going to do underhyped, overhyped, and appropriately hyped.
I do want to give some context. I got a text from Joe yesterday that just said, "Can you send me a list of every book you've read?" And I was like, what do you mean every book I've read? Like my whole life as an adult? He's like, just all of them.
To be fair, I did say don't spend much time on it. I said just put whatever comes to your mind. If it's a few books, that's fine. Just whatever comes
So
to
I
your mind.
think
when
the
you read.
list was longer than he was expecting.
Oh
So I
my
was like,
god, it was so much. It was so long that I was like, should I delete 50% of this because this is gonna take way too long to read. But anyways, we're doing underhyped, overhyped, appropriately hyped. That's it. Don't give any explanation.
nope.
You ready? Also, most of these, some of them may or may not have the authors. I'm going to try to include the authors whenever I can. Some will be obvious, some won't. So, yeah, that'll be it. Just look
I
them
couldn't
up.
remember all of them off the top of my head.
The Odyssey,
Appropriately hyped.
To Kill a Mockingbird,
Appropriately hyped.
At the Back of the North Wind.
Underhyped.
This is going to be a lot of Brandon Sanderson now. The Stormlight Archive 1-5.
Underhyped.
Edge Dancer,
Overhyped.
Dawn Shard,
Appropriately hyped.
The Isle of Lies, by Ashton Treadaway.
Completely underhyped.
Mistborn Arrow 1,
Appropriately hyped.
Mistborn Arrow 2,
Underhyped.
Secret History,
Appropriately hyped.
Warbreaker,
Appropriately hyped.
Elantris,
Appropriately hyped.
Arcanum Unbounded,
Underhyped.
Tress of the Emerald Sea,
Underhyped.
The Sunlit Man,
Underhyped.
Yumi and the Nightmare Painter,
Underhyped.
The Isle of Lies.
Very underhyped.
Now all the Tolkien books, Lord of the Rings 1-3,
Lord of the Rings. Appropriately hyped.
The Hobbit,
Underhyped.
The Silmarillion,
Overhyped.
C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia.
Underhyped.
All the books 1-7.
Underhyped.
The Isle of Lies,
Underhyped.
Now on to Ted Dekker. He has a lot of Ted Dekker. This is one of the ones I was considering deleting. Anyways, The Circle.
Underhyped.
Paradise Books 1 through 3.
Underhyped.
Lost Books.
I think I can stop you and just say Ted Dekker, and every single thing he's written is underhyped. Don't read Ted Dekker.
Well, they got to know the books. Lost Books.
Underhyped.
Book of Mortals.
Underhyped.
House.
Underhyped.
Skin.
Underhyped.
Emmanuel's Veins.
Underhyped.
80/30.
Underhyped.
The Martyr's Song.
Underhyped.
Blessed Child.
Underhyped.
A Man Called Blessed.
Underhyped.
3.
Underhyped.
Adam.
Underhyped.
The Isle of Lies.
Underhyped.
Rick Royden has 3. This next set is Percy Jackson.
Appropriately hyped.
Heroes of Olympus.
Underhyped.
Magnus Chase.
Overhyped.
And then Suzanne Collins. Hunger Games.
Appropriately hyped.
Divergent.
I just want to point out Suzanne Collins didn't write Divergent.
That's what was written, but that's fine. You know
I'm
what?
just-
You know what? We're just gonna
That
scrap Suzanne Collins. We're just gonna ask about the books.
You did
Hunger
say
Games. Hunger Games. 1, 2, and 3.
Appropriately hyped.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about the other Hunger Games. We'll just do Hunger Games 1, 2,
I
and
was
3.
just Divergent
Sorry.
was a different dystopian series. I just couldn't remember the author.
Yeah, okay. This is a Joseph problem. He wrote this down a little weird. But yes, Hunger Games 1 through 3.
Appropriately hyped. Divergent.
1 through 3.
Overhyped.
I think this is Patrick Rothfuss.
Ooh.
King Killer Chronicle 1 through 2.
Everybody knows The Name of the Wind, which
I
is
just underhyped or overhyped.
I'm just differentiating the two books.
Okay, sorry.
The first book is appropriately hyped. Second book, very underhyped.
Okay, thank you. The Shadow of the Gods.
Overhyped.
Song of Ice and Fire, books 1 through 4.
Appropriately hyped.
The Last Wish.
Appropriately hyped.
Well, The Witcher, The Last Wish.
Yeah.
The Will of the Many by James
Islington.
Islington, yeah.
Pretty sure. Appropriately hyped.
Project Hail Mary, Andy Weir.
Appropriately hyped.
Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers.
Underhyped.
A Walk Across America.
Underhyped.
Dreamhouse Kings by Robert Lip. I don't know. I'm not even going to try that. Dreamhouse Kings.
Dreamhouse Kings. Underhyped.
The next set is Wayne Thomas Batson, The Door Within Trilogy.
Underhyped.
Isle of Swords.
Underhyped.
Isle of Fire.
Underhyped.
Isle
of Lies. Underhyped.
Erasure. Percival Everett.
Underhyped.
Jaws.
Appropriately hyped.
Pierce Brown's Red Rising 1 through 3.
Appropriately hyped.
Chuck Black, The Kingdom series 1 through 6.
Underhyped.
Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Appropriately hyped.
Okay, 1 through 6.
Appropriately.
Maurice Alfred's Cello's Gate.
Cello's Date is very underhyped.
Gate.
Go check it out.
Yep, I'm gonna mispronounce so many of these. I already have. Noah Rook, Soft Things Don't Last Here.
Underhyped.
The Isle of Lies.
Underhyped.
A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Overhyped.
Harry Potter 1 through 7.
Appropriately hyped.
And last but not least, The Isle of Lies.
Still underhyped, sadly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one. But yeah, that's all those books you guys can now look up on your own. If you're interested in any of those, me personally, I'd probably look up any of the ones that were underhyped and appropriately hyped. That would make sense.
Yeah.
But to finish this whole episode off, I want to ask you, what is the best advice you would give others, and what is the worst advice you would give others? Now, I want to start with the worst advice you would give others when writing, and then we'll go to the finish off with the best.
The worst writing advice? The worst advice would be to write what you think will sell. That's bad advice.
I didn't expect you to hit me with such a good worst advice. Sorry, that caught me off guard. I mean, that's really good advice. I mean, the reason I wrote it, or the reason I prompted it that way, is because sometimes looking at what you shouldn't do tells you what you should do.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you want to stay poor? Oh, well, spend all your money. Well, I know now I shouldn't spend all my money.
Yep.
Put too much money in credit card debt. Okay, yeah, sure, that'll help me stay poor. How would you like to be an unsuccessful writer? Don't write a book. But no, that was really good. What was it again?
Write what you think will sell.
Write what you think will sell. That's the worst advice. You sure that's the worst?
I mean,
It's pretty
I
bad.
could think of worse than that, as in like, don't ever write. Who cares? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You caught me off so that's such a good one. What is the best advice you give?
Best advice is, I mentioned it before, is just do it. Don't care, or don't get in your head about how good it is. Just sit down and write. One of the podcasts I listen, well, other podcasts about writing talked about just button seat, hands on keyboard, just sitting down to do it and get it done. So that's the best advice any writer gives, is just write, just do it.
Yeah, we were talking before this, and you were actually in the other room. You were literally working on something. You were like, "Yep, I just deleted a whole sentence and I'm rewriting it out again,"
Yeah.
which made me think of like when you think of writing, you think of people with a paper and pencil and writing things down, and you always see them like crumble up the paper, throw it against the wall or the trash can. But I think that's what you mean by that, is like you just write, and you can always go back and re-edit things. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is you do a lot of editing.
Yeah.
Maybe not more than writing, but you do a lot of editing.
Editing is a huge process. That's why you can't edit nothing. So if you get words on the page, you can always go back, fix them, make them look nicer, and things like that. But the most important thing is just to get the words on the page to begin with, because you can't work with nothing.
Yeah, and in terms of even like video, there's a quote, I don't know who it is, but it's that a movie's never finished. It's just completed. It's just put out. That's literally it. When it comes to like making a video, I can add so many effects and like S effects, VFX, and like I can polish it. I can do things that people will never notice, like color grading. And it might make, all of those changes will make it a little bit better. But at the end of the day, you just got to get it out, and you just got to move on to the next thing. There's been horror stories of people in various forms of art that have spent years to get stuff out because they were trying to perfect it.
Yeah, perfectionism can definitely be crippling. I've never really suffered with that, thankfully. But in my mind, make something good. It doesn't have to be perfect, because nothing's ever perfect. But if you can get to the stage where it's good and you're happy with it and you're proud of it, then that's kind of your sign that you've completed. And I'm sure you can tweak a couple things here and there, but at some point it's like, okay, I'm just kind of moving sideways. You want to get to a point where you're happy with it, and then just let it be. Yeah,
I relate personally so much to that one, as do I think a lot of people, whether it's like a musician, whether it's somebody who paints, whether it's somebody like me who makes videos, or somebody who's literally writing a book. They all suffered through that comedian, they all suffered through the same thing of, it could be better, but just do it, just get it done. But yeah, with that, man, there's other stuff that we could go into that I also had, but that's pretty much all I got. Worst advice, best advice, and my advice is go get the book.
Yeah, go read Isle of Lies by Ashton Treadaway.
Yeah, not just because I like Ashton, but also because it is a good book written by a good dude, and yeah, he's coming out with more. That was my other complaint, actually, that I gave him, was that I didn't have enough to read. I actually read it in like 2 or 3 days, which I'm not a fast reader by any means. I've come to find that actually just means I'm enjoying it more when I read faster. Turns out, didn't know. But yeah, I read it in like 2 days, 2 or 3 days.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the reviews, the positive, speaking highly of the book, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, as I said, never would have had John if I didn't like it.
I do want to say it is on Amazon, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you don't even have to pay anything else. You can go read it.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't even buy it. I'm just kidding. I did actually do that, but sometimes I do purchase books as like a physical trophy to put on the shelf, because that's fun. Like if I listen to an audiobook.
Yeah, we need our shelf trophies.
Yeah. If I listen to an audiobook, I'll go buy it. And I'm like, yeah, look, I read this.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching, and I appreciate it. If you like this video, share it to somebody else so that they also can receive a good book or recommendations for multiple good books. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.